O Muse, sing to us of the Worst of All Possible Worlds podcast and its three vocally indistinguishable co-hosts. Sing to us of the Mets-loving Josh, a man so aggressively Dutch that he once confided in me that he has, on more than one occasion, masturbated to a grainy JPEG of a windmill. Sing to us of the photo-capturing Brian, a man whose love of New Mexico is so profound that up until recently his go-to come-on line was, "I've got a pole you can gallop."
Why is it a sex thing each time?
Sing to us of the bit-slinging AJ, a man whose physical appearance can generously be described as what if Kermit got a divorce. Sing to us.
Oh, so that one didn't have a sex thing.
I was going to have a sex one in there.
Fucking AJ. Jesus.
Okay. I'll do one for me. Whose go-to sex thing for a while was like, hey, how do you like Kermit with the divorce? Sing to us.
That's not a sex thing.
Okay, hold on.
There is nothing sexual about divorce.
I'll do one. Okay. Okay. What? Like, hey, person, do you like Kermit with a divorce? Fuck. Sing to us of the worst of all possible worlds.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast that's getting a divorce. I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
And I am the worst of all possible Brian.
You sure are, buddy, because we are
putting up with AJ shit.
That's right, I'm back this week.
I started this podcast 4 years ago. And what rhymes with shit?
And I'm tired of AJ's shit.
You know, that's an identity. That's not a rhyme, you dumb whore.
Fuck. This actually, you're right. I'm looking at the calendar, and once we get sort of toward the end of this week, it is going to mark 4 years of the worst of all possible worlds. That's
right.
Fucking crazy.
You're stuck with us, bitches.
Yeah, we're in it to win it. And also,
I'm using a lot of gendered words that are very mean, and so I'm gonna back off of that for a second.
Yeah. I saw you put your toe in the water, and then you pulled your toe out, and it was just bone. It was like, oh no, we gotta stay away from this.
That's the gender
lake.
water.
We're entering the era of misogynist Brian.
Yes.
The nice thing is that this week we are covering something that I think I'm gonna venture a guess is near and dear to all three of our hearts, which is the Coen brothers adaptation of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I don't know if near and dear to my heart would be exactly accurate. I would say in terms of like Coen brothers stuff that's near and dear to my heart, it would be Fargo. But this is a movie that was on regular rotation for me when I was a teenager. When I started to have a little bit of disposable income,
Sure.
I was spending it on really two things, which was DVDs of George Clooney movies and lights and fog machines.
The weirdest thing is that every time Josh wanted to watch this movie, he hadn't quite figured out DVD technology at this point. He bought a copy of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou every single time.
That's right.
It was $3 at Walmart, but
well, you have to throw them out. They get stale after a while.
I thought it was. Yeah. I thought that they were encoded with DivX technology.
There we go.
There it is.
Does that mean you also watched Intolerable Cruelty, Josh?
No, but I did watch a lot of Good Night and Good Luck.
Okay.
And that's not a joke. I really did.
On Broadway now.
Yeah.
Yes. Get your tickets. We don't see a cut of it, but get your tickets.
How much are those tickets?
Probably like
Telecharge.com. Let's take a look.
I think we could spend like our entire earnings of a month and maybe get rear balcony.
Well, it's like Othello is selling tickets, upwards of a nearly $1,000 and 0 Tony nominations. That's right. Count them. Nothing. Goose egg.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think when you have a show where none of the actors look at each other when they talk, it's not going to engender.
Yeah, that's what we call forensics in the great state of Michigan.
I was going to say
the most expensive.
Ivo Van Hove has made an entire career off of that. Of what if you just do duo interp and then throw in a wolf every now and then?
Also, just to go back to
get rid of that wolf.
Previous question.
Yeah, good night, good luck. Ticket
if we wanted to go
yes.
on Tuesday night, I'm seeing 2 tickets available. 2 single tickets available.
Wow.
Down in the orchestra for $669 a piece. So,
Jesus Christ. Broadway's back,
Broadway's
folks.
back.
Broadway
Really,
is back.
actually, there are a lot of good shows, and I do want to see a couple of them. I don't care about that one. The movie's good.
But yes, back to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes.
Also a good movie by my favorite boys.
They're really good boys.
Yeah, I have seen every Coen Brothers movie.
Is that true?
Yeah. I made it a goal in college to do that, and so I've just sort of kept up to date. I have also read Ethan Coen's plays.
Me too.
They're okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the collection that they come in is like maybe 60 pages, and it's like $30. It is the most expensive play collection you will ever purchase.
I just got the dramatist or Samuel French or whatever. It was not that expensive.
My first exposure to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is kind of a crazy story. This whole month is actually going to be specifically tailored to my actual father, Tony Ditty, because we are covering on Fancy Movie Time one of his favorite movies, Being There, and this is also another one of his favorite movies.
Okay.
And the reason I know that is because when I was 10 years old, when this thing came out, I was having migraines. And my family was very concerned that it could be like a brain tumor, and so they had to get me going, have me take it into like get the CAT scan or whatever, right? But one of
They didn't have you watch Kindergarten Cop to settle you down?
Yeah.
To assure you that it's not a tumor?
Look, here's the thing. The most calming thing in the world to me was a large Austrian man screaming a medical diagnosis at me. I feel like that was that's the only thing that could soothe me. So one of the requirements in order to get that CAT scan, or a PET scan, I think it was, in order to see like what the hell was going on, was that you couldn't sleep the night before. So my dad took me to like an 11 p.m. showing of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou at like this movie theater. It was the latest I had ever stayed out. I didn't know the world existed outside of it. And I was really sleep deprived because I was 10 years old and I was not used to being up that late. So I watched this movie in kind of a fugue state, and it's fascinating going back and rewatching it now and being like, oh yeah, it kind of is a fugue state kind of movie. It's like, I was pretty much right on the money, but it holds a really special place in my heart because it was like the first time I felt like an adult. That was like me becoming an adult.
I actually would say that was sort of my experience with the movie as well. Not the whole, staying up late for a brain scan thing, but just feeling like this was the first adult movie that I was really watching that I had in my collection.
Oh, sure.
That and Good Night and Good Luck, of course. Both, being, I don't know, fucking 13 years old or whatever, and really wanting to be like, wow, a
sophisticated man.
I'm not like the other boys. I really am. Matters of culture are important to me, and my parents wouldn't allow me to buy R-rated movies. So,
Sure. Yeah. And this was rated R, right? This is
PG-13.
PG-13 movie.
I don't know. The sirens are pretty sexy.
Not really though. Like they're fully clothed. They're wet, but you're not seeing anything.
They don't become nude.
No, I know, but it's the wet. You know what? I think it's just the wet factor of it.
For you,
for me specifically.
That's R-rated for AJ.
The more moist.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is like I had seen a couple Coen Brothers movies growing up. Usually the television cuts of those movies. I had no idea how many F words were in Fargo. For so many years because I only ever saw it on TV.
Oh, sure.
And I didn't realize that Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was a Coen Brothers movie when I saw it. Even though it has so many of their hallmarks in it, it does have a different feel.
It feels a little different.
Yeah.
Well, it is their first major adaptation of anything. And so they are sort of playing in a new sandbox, and it's amazing just out of the gate nailing an adaptation as hard as they do.
And I didn't see it in theaters, but it got so much airtime. Because of all the songs.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing I'll Fly Away. There was a music video for that played on like CMT at the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right. The soundtrack, even to this day, I think has outpaced the movie in terms of its like cultural imprint.
It's such a fantastic soundtrack.
Yeah. I think like entire generations of people have discovered classic songs like Man of Constant Sorrow and The Big Rock Candy Mountain through this movie.
Right. And these are all songs that were present during the time. Most of the songs in the movie were present during the time period, during the Dust Bowl, during the Great Depression. A Constant Sorrow was written originally for this film, though.
No.
It wasn't?
No, it's an old song. We're not entirely sure who wrote it. It was published by a guy, Dick Burnett.
Burnett?
Either way.
Damn near killed it.
Could be Burnett or Burnett. And of course, the
after reading
songwriter or music director for Oh Brother Art Thou is T-Bone Burnett. I don't believe that they're related at all. And of course, Carter Burwell, another one of their usual collaborators, collaborated with them once more to score the film. I mean, this has usual Coen Brothers things, like all the stars are here.
The soundtrack was actually sort of compiled right before the movie was even made. Like it was sort of the building blocks on which they built the movie. And you can tell because this thing, it's not quite a musical in its construction because it is kind of just a bunch of vignettes back to back to back to back to back in very much the way the Odyssey is, but you can tell that the music is the underlying backbone that gives this whole movie its structure.
Yeah, it sort of serves as its vision board, you could say.
Yes,
it's so clear that when they were constructing each of these scenes, they had a sense of how it should look, but especially how it should sound.
Speaking of sound, what this movie opens on is a chain gang.
Yeah, it's so quiet.
Yeah.
I at first was like, wait, does this not have an audio? Did I get a copy of this movie that doesn't have an audio track on it? And then it's like, oh, wait, no, it's just really going to fade us in very, very gradually.
It fades you in a couple of ways, too, because it starts out with just a black and white frame that then develops a little bit of color. And this chain gang song that you hear at the very beginning of the movie. This is just a real recording of a chain gang in the 50s.
Oh, really?
This was not done for the movie. The movie sort of syncs everything up to this actual track. One thing to really notice here is that it has a very specific look to it.
Yes.
It's sepia toned, but it's not sepia toning like you get at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, Josh, or AJ, like what never happens in The Wizard of Oz because your mom taped it and did not keep the black and white parts.
Correct. Yes.
That part sucks. Who cares? No,
I talked to her actually about that recently, and she was like, I don't know, your dad did that.
As always, blame the woman.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
the Brian Alfred promise.
There we go.
Jesus
It's not sepia toning exactly, though. What it is, it's this aggressive desaturation.
Yeah.
Where everything looks really like yellowish.
Yeah.
Which again, for a second, I was like, wait, did I get a copy that was improperly color graded also? No, that's just how this movie
very
looks.
Properly color graded. So
intentionally so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to get like the Dust Bowl aesthetic, but the Dust Bowl happened in the West.
Right.
It didn't happen in the South. The South is famously very fertile. It is a place where a lot of stuff grows, including kudzu, and you'll never get rid of it. And so they're shooting in Mississippi in June and July, which hot. Ow.
Yeah. And you can tell, you're seeing some of the scenes, and even Clooney, who's pretty put together,
so
is sweating buckets. Yeah. It's a wet movie.
And so they were talking to Roger Deakins, one of their DP on just about everything that they do. And they're like, this is when we're shooting in Mississippi. And he's like, well, you're not going to get the Dust Bowl look out of this. It's going to look like Ireland.
Yeah.
It's going to be all emerald tones. What you got to do is you got to adjust, right? If you really want to make it that desaturated look, what are the things that you can do? And the old fashioned way of color correction, which could be stylized in certain ways, is called color timing. If you've ever heard that term, it's still sometimes used today, even though we're not actually timing anything anymore. Basically what you're doing is you're running your negative up to print. So you're running it against another strip of film. And a regular printing process is just like, then you expose it to light, each frame, right? And just runs through. But if you have to correct, then you have to run it through like a prism where you have a red light, a green light, and a blue light. Oh. And so you time it. It's a mat with conclusions on it. And
you time to.
Yeah. And so you time it so that it gets a little bit more green light on it, right? The green light is on slightly longer than the blue and the red.
Somewhere Gatsby is jerking it.
Right. And so that if you're making it green, that's what you're going to do or whatever. It goes through that whole process. And so that's typically used for correction, right? You've shot something different times of day, different times of year, and you're matching things up. And it's a frustrating thing. You can't see it as you're doing it. You have to develop the film afterwards and then figure it out. You can also do some tricks in development to cause other adjustments.
Right.
Plus, the effects that they were doing affected skin tone.
Right.
And the human eye will allow a lot of colors to change and just be like, cool, that's what we're doing today. Yeah. You do it to human skin and it starts to look weird, right? We identify different skin tones with like getting sick or losing blood or something like that. So it starts to look strange. So you have to be really careful around that. And basically what they figured out was like, we need to do this digitally.
Entirely
Right.
digitally,
We're approaching the year 2000, and we're going to just do it all on the computer.
And you can see from the way that they've done this that they are grading the actors separately from the backgrounds. And
Yes.
at this point, the available technology, I don't know too much about how this tech works, but it's pretty clear that it was cruder than what's available now.
Oh,
because
Yeah, you get a little bit of a green glow
Kind of a
around
shimmer,
everybody.
yeah.
Especially the siren scene.
Yes.
Everyone looks like they're in front of a green screen because
Yeah.
they have been color corrected in a way that's a little bit more natural. Everything else has been turned gold. And then in sort of the strands of their hair, you see the actual green of all the leaves behind them coming out.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah,
Wow.
the problem is that, the color is green, so it just makes it look like
But
the
for
Phantom
most other
Menace.
things, like it's pretty fucking seamless. Like
Yeah.
the one where they're doing the hitchhiking on the side of the road and all the trees are just like like radioactive yellow.
Well, and even right here at the beginning, right? Because after you see this chain gang, and this, of course, is intercut with the opening titles, including the beginning of the Odyssey itself, which AJ did a version of at the beginning of our episode just now.
Yep. I've had a lot of practice writing intros for the Odyssey.
Yeah, and we'll get talking about that in just a moment, too.
Yeah.
But you see these three prisoners who have now broken off of the chain gang. They are still shackled together.
Yeah.
But they have figured out a way to break free of the rest of the chain gang, and they are bounding across these fields
And hitting the dirt.
Yeah, diving down so that they don't get seen by, the overseer of the thing. And we're off and running pretty quickly, They attempt and fail to board a passing boxcar on the railroad.
So
and
funny.
George Clooney, from very early on here, you see how good he is at slapstick?
Yes.
Which is such, I think, an underrated part of his toolkit as an actor.
It's basically something he only gets to do with the Coen brothers.
Right.
Yes.
Everywhere else, he's Mr. Handsome.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, nobody expects a guy that good looking to also be funny.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is that I think that in most like very attractive people's like acting resumes, they don't get to play this like note very often, but often they are the silliest people. Like they have that toolkit, and it's just
Leslie
really a
Nielsen.
shame.
Yeah.
Yes,
Leslie
exactly.
Nielsen used to play the driest. I mean, I love Forbidden Planet, but the driest shit imaginable. And yet he'd be on set with a little fart machine that he'd slip into people's pockets.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, one of my great joys as a writer is taking sort of more conventionally attractive people and giving them the opportunity to be silly, because they don't get the opportunity to do that very much. And God damn it, I'm so mad that Clooney doesn't do more fucking comedies like this.
But he gets yanked right back out of the boxcar again.
Because the other two guys are down there and he's still chained to them.
So he gets yeeted back out, and Everett basically tries to gain some sort of leadership over the group.
Jesus! Can I count on you people?
Sorry, Everett.
Well, all right. We take off through that bayou. Then... Wait a minute. Who elected you leader of this outfit?
Well, Pete, I figured it should be the one with the capacity for abstract thought. But if that ain't the consensus view, then hell, let's put it to a vote.
Suits me. I'm voting for yours truly.
Well, I'm voting for yours truly, too.
Okay. I'm with you fellas.
So
that is a perfect comedic exchange. I am obsessed with it. That is John Turturro, that is Tim Blake Nelson, and that is George Clooney making up the main core of this movie.
Right, and just to sort of frame up these characters, George Clooney is playing Everett. You sort of heard him as he's sort of the fast talking. He thinks he's a lot smarter than he really is guy.
Yeah, he's very much like, and this is a reference that no one will get, but I'm still going to say it, John Aston in The Brothers O'Toole.
I will take your word for it.
Fast talking con man type. You know, he knows all the big book learning words. Yeah. And you can already tell he's kind of misrepresenting some aspect of himself here.
You've also got John Turturro, who is playing Pete. Pete is, I would say, pretty heavily driven by impulse and id. He really just feels things very strongly and acts based on that impulse.
Yes.
And then the third character, Delmar O'Donnell, played by Tim Blake Nelson, in a truly delightful performance.
And at this point, Tim Blake Nelson was not a well-known actor. He was actually directing O at the same time. You know, the movie O.
Yeah.
The modern
we do. We all
adaptation-
just said it.
Yeah, the modern adaptation of Othello. He was in post-production for that when he did this. And basically, he knew the Coen brothers through Frances McDormand, right? Because she's married to Joel Coen. And he got a call while working on O that was like, hey, they just sent him the script, first of all.
Yeah.
You know, because he was a classics major. So he thought that he was looking it over because it was their adaptation of the Odyssey or whatever.
So he thought it'd be fancy.
So he didn't think for a second that they were asking him to audition or anything.
Yeah,
and they
he was
didn't
just
ask him.
dramaturging it, yeah.
They didn't ask him to audition. They just this was them just offering him the role.
Well, he was the only one who had read the Odyssey on set.
And Delmar, I mean, we'll hear a lot more of him, but he's just so sweet and good-hearted.
Yeah, he's the child of the group, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Think
Lenny
in
Of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men. Yeah.
And AJ, that's a good point. He was the only one who read the Odyssey. The Coen brothers, to this day, claim that they did not read the Odyssey.
This is all through osmosis.
Yeah, cultural osmosis, which is why like certain things like the way the Cyclops story goes isn't really that close to what happens in the Odyssey.
No. But what I will say is that this has been like, I don't know, Tim Blake Nelson had a thing where he's like, I went over to their house and there was a copy of the Odyssey that had a sticky note on it that says, to be adapted to film by the Coen brothers, like when he went over to the Coen brothers house. And so it's like, I don't know. I think maybe they like skimmed it at least. Yeah. You have to, because the references they make in this are pretty obscure.
They're too specific.
Yeah.
I think they're a little too specific. And look, when we talk about adaptations of the Odyssey, we are talking about Odysseus, obviously, goes from the Trojan War.
Who?
Don't worry, big warrior guy.
Wait, Odysseus? He's in the Odyssey?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's his story, turns
Did
out.
he know?
Not at the time.
Odysseus travels obviously home. For anyone who does not know just the basic bare bones plot of the Odyssey, right? Odysseus travels back from the Trojan War to his home in Ithaca, New York. It takes him 10 years.
Yeah.
Apparently, had he just walked, it would have taken 3 months.
He should have just walked home in a straight line.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like the Pilgrims settling at fucking Plymouth Rock.
Yes.
It's
Well,
like, oh yeah, this was like a 3-day trip that took them a month and half of them died.
If you look at the map of how it goes, it's literally like he's almost home and then just goes
Hey,
like
you know
all
what?
over the
You know
place.
what,
Well, the
AJ?
gods
Yeah.
kind of fucked with
It's
them.
Falling
not
down,
the
but with Odysseus.
destination, it's the journey.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's sort of the whole point of the thing. But along the way, he has this whole crew of men, right, that are with him that get
The Argosy, and they're all the Argonauts.
yes, who all get like killed off.
That's
like,
not
one by
true.
one.
That's Jason.
Oh, that's Jason.
I'm fucking with you, AJ.
Sorry, you fuck.
You're too sleep deprived
I'm
for that
so
joke. I
sleep
really
deprived.
thought you were gonna really
That's
nail
the
that
Argonauts.
one. Yeah.
AJ got a brain scan last night.
Yeah.
Watched
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
word,
But
though.
I saw
it
this with my
should be
dad.
worth noting they do throw in a little bit of Jason in here because
do.
these guys are looking for a treasure, which is not
Yes.
what Odysseus is up to. He's just trying to get home to his wife.
Yes, he's trying to get home to his
In a
wife
straight
and son.
line. Yeah.
Yes, in a straight line. He's got glasses on. He beats up a Nazi along the way.
Yeah.
It's a
Justin,
lovely
if you're
time.
listening to this, how you doing, man?
Hey man,
How's the tour?
How's the
It's
tour?
good seeing you on
How's the tour going? The men of Odysseus' company get like killed off one by one, right?
Yeah.
Basically, they meet a new foe, and then like a couple of them get gobbled up every now and
Yeah.
then. They
Yeah.
aren't given like explicit personalities outside of like Elpenor, who I believe is the John Turturro stand-in here, who gets really drunk in Circe's palace and like falls from the rafters and dies, but it's only after Odysseus has already left. And then they find him in Hades, and he's like, "Hey, can you bury me when you get back?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, we didn't even know you fucking died."
I love also at one because it's like, yeah, you get a couple people picked off one by one, and then they eat like Helios's oxen, and then it's like, okay, everyone's dead.
Yeah, they
now.
all just
It's
gotta fucking
just
go.
Odysseus
So
now.
I think that John Turturro's character is Elpenor.
Okay.
And then I think that Delmer is just an amalgamation of all the rest of Odysseus's men into sort of one packaging.
He's the boat.
He is the I don't know why that got me so hard.
The car is the boat.
No, but they lose
they
the
have
car.
multiple
They got
cars.
multiple cars. Delmer's the boat.
Odysseus
He's my
had
boat
multiple
boy.
boats.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
Checkmate, atheists.
Oh god.
Well, and it's also worth noting what else they're kind of adapting here at the same time, besides just the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Because William Faulkner also wrote an adaptation of the story of Hercules, right? And his many tasks. His labors, and set it in the American South. And of course, Faulkner is also sort of fictionalized in Barton Fink.
Oh, sure.
Another thing that they're adapting here, not just referencing, but kind of adapting, is Sullivan's Travels. a 1941 movie about a guy who's like trying to make proletarian art, much like the title character of Barton Fink, and he decides to become homeless for a while. He becomes a hobo and tries to travel around America to gain some sort of authentic perspective. It is one of the wackiest, craziest movies I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
It's an absolute classic, and I'll just keep pointing to the little parts of that movie that end up in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
So hearing all of this stuff, I was like, okay, so these guys must have been on some liberal arts bullshit. And indeed, I went and looked up. They went to Bard College at Simon's Rock, which if you're not familiar with Simon's Rock College of Bard, it's a undergraduate college that is mostly for people who are high school age. And then they also Ethan went on to go to Princeton. He got his undergrad in philosophy. And Joel Coen went to NYU for a little while.
Yes, he did.
So
I remember seeing his name on the walls of the building.
All this is to say, the density of references in this thing, we're going to, I think, have a little bit of fun talking throughout this time about what specifically is being called out in these moments. But before we do that, and before we jump back into the story itself, AJ, I had one more question for you.
Yes.
Why do you care so much about adaptations of the Odyssey?
Because I'm currently adapting the Odyssey.
Really?
Really? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's called The Adventures of Bungo Calamity, Apocalypse Clown, and it's about a clown named Bungo Calamity in the apocalypse who travels from Fresno, California to Ithaca, New York to reunite with his long-lost wife and son, Penelope and Teller Calamity. Penn and Teller.
Yeah.
And I had someone at the show.
Because it's Telemachus in the Odyssey.
And so somebody in the audience last night, and someone just went, "For fuck's sake, Penn and Teller." Like fully audible. It was delicious.
So you enjoyed doing adaptations of stuff.
Yeah.
And what is it about adaptation that's so interesting to you? And by this, I mean the motion picture, obviously, with Nicolas Cage.
Yes, of course. Of course. I mean, I love that fucking movie, too. There's something that is so thrilling about taking something that is so like integral to like an integral story to humanity, right? Something like the Odyssey, and then taking it down off of the pedestal and rearranging it so that it speaks to something more specific or to the modern day. Like that's something that I find incredibly thrilling. And Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is one of those cases where it is not a one-to-one with the Odyssey, but it is exactly the vibe, and it gets you in the mind of these characters that can seem very distant and very mythic. Yeah. Right? Odysseus is often called cunning throughout the entire Odyssey. He's the strategist. He is a con man for most of it, right? Yeah. The way he gets out of the battle with the Cyclops is talking his way out of it. Right. So of course he would be a grifter in the fucking American South. It's one of those things that you watch and you're just like, you are realizing this greater truth about humanity through the specificity of this one very brilliant choice.
And every good journey, of course, begins with a prophecy or some sort of call to adventure, I should say.
Right. If it's Greek, yeah.
We get that call to adventure pretty promptly here in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Because the very first guy that they come across after that train passes by is a blind man on a hand-cranked rail car.
You work for the railroad, Grandpa?
I work for no man.
Got a name, do you?
I have no name.
Well, that right there may be the reason you've had difficulty finding gainful employment. You see, in the mart of competitive commerce...
You seek a great fortune, you three who are nigh in chain. You will find a fortune, though it will not be the fortune you seek. But first you must travel a long and difficult road. A road fraught with peril. You shall see things wonderful to tell. You shall see a cow on the roof of a cotton house. And oh, so many startlings. I cannot tell you how long this road shall be, but fear not the obstacles in your path. For fate has vouchsafed your reward. Though the road may wind, yea, your hearts grow weary, still shall ye follow the way, even unto your salvation.
So here we have a framing up of our, again, basic call to adventure. You're going to go out there. You're going to be seeking a great fortune. The fortune you find is not going to be that which you seek. You're going to see a cow up on a roof.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really like about this, just listening to this, right? This is really, I think, representative of the sound of this movie.
Yeah.
Where all of the dialogue spoken by everybody in this movie has a musicality to it. And that musicality, generally speaking, is edited against music as well. And the two complement each other beautifully.
Right, which makes sense because if you were listening, let's say back in ancient Greece, right, you're sitting around at a party, drinking some wine and some mead, you would be at this party and there'd be someone with a lyre in the corner, like playing a little thing, and there'd be somebody reciting a thing by Homer.
And Homer himself is not recognized as a writer. He was himself a reciter. Hey there, you are listening to a preview of a premium episode of The Worst of All Possible Worlds. If you'd like to listen to the rest of this, head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/worstofall. And you can listen to not only the rest of this episode, but our entire backlog of premium episodes, bonus episodes, and if you subscribe at the $10 tier, you will get an extra episode of the podcast every single month. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall. Hope to see you there.